Hello. So this is a small video about Leaving Certificate Marks 2024, what is exam about and what to expect and how to go about it. Okay. So the max paper of Leaving Certificate consists of two papers, like two exams. One is paper one and the other is paper two. So the paper one mostly it will be on a Friday and paper two will mostly will be on Monday. That's the history as of today. The paper one consists of topics like algebra, indices and logs, the functions, the whole of calculus, the differential calculus, and the integration, complex numbers, sequences, and series, and proof by induction. Okay, and the paper two is mostly on the geometry side, so coordinate geometry of the line and the circle, the trigonometry. It will have the probability and the statistics, and it will have general geometry and also area and volume. So it is very important for you to understand the distinction between this, because since you have one weekend over weekend to practice for paper 2, so it is better you understand that okay, these are the topics which are there, and then prepare accordingly, so that it will give you a little more time to prepare for paper 2. But I have to warn you that it's not a clear distinction. You cannot say that okay, trigonometry problems will come only on paper 2. No, it's not like that. Trigonometry problems can come in differential calculus also. It can come in complex numbers. So there can be many ways these topics can be interchanged in paper 1 and paper 2. So you cannot always put away paper 2 topics, but you have to understand that there is a very much close linkage between these two papers. But if you want to talk about the theorems or the proofs or the constructions, and the mostly it will be there in paper 2. So we can understand small things. We can keep off small things for the weekend revision, but otherwise you have to learn the whole of the things before your max paper starts. Max paper 1 starts. Okay, now moving on to the sections as such. So there are two sections on the paper, both paper 1 and paper 2. The section A will be mostly concepts and skills. So which means that do you know a concept, like if you have a trigonometric ratio, do you know how to differentiate it? Or if you have a complex number, do you know how to find the conjugate and find some processing on that? So it is purely on the concept basis. So if you have learned the concept, you should be able to answer these questions, and it's out of 150 marks, and you have to answer 5 out of 6 questions, and each question will be um, 30 30 marks worth. Okay, so that's the section 1, section A. So if you learn the concept, you will be able to answer this question. The section B is where the context and the applications. So what happens is like this is where all the real life problems will come into picture. So they might say that there's a water tank which is getting filled, or there's a bacterial growth, and there is like a tower which is this much high, or whatever under the sun they can ask. So here you have to understand the context. You have to understand what they are explaining. You have to see which area you can apply it to, or which is the topic of our mathematical this thing it applies to. Maybe it could be differentiation, or it could be an integration. Like if they are asking for an average value of a function, it will directly go into the integration. And similarly, if they are asking about the area, you have to think like okay, which area it will apply up to, etc., and then you have to work on that problem. Once you understand that linkage, again the further one is just the differentiation, or maybe just solving the problems. Maybe it could be an algebraic equation, solve quadratic equation or cubic equation, or whatever it is. So that will be that is the that's a little more complex. Most of the people find this complex because they have to understand, read the question, because it will be a very different question. Read it, understand, and find out what it applies to, and then you have to work on that problem. Okay, here also you have to work 3 out of 4 questions, and each will be worth 50 marks. Okay, so here you can skip one question, here also you can skip another question. So what I would recommend is like whenever you get a paper, when you scan through the paper quickly, okay, don't waste too much of time on that. Scan through the paper and see which is a question which you don't want to answer. So just maybe put a small mark on that question, and don't look at the question in the beginning. When you are working on the section A, don't work on that question. And when I'm talking about the time, I'll tell you how to come back to that question. But initially, don't work on this question, because you don't want to spend all the time in working on section A question and then not do section B questions. Okay, we want to work on all the questions. So we have to stick to the time, and then calculate the time and work on this. Okay, that's where I have this slide where how to manage time. Okay, so with some calculation, I have figured out that for the section A, sorry, this written section 1 here. It's section A, you aim for around 12 minutes per section, per question, and sorry, 12 minutes for section A and 20 minutes for section B questions. Okay, so you can approximately you can aim like this. So it can go here and there because some questions are pretty easy. You might be very comfortable with the question. You will be able to complete the questions faster, but not more than 12 minutes for each question in section A. Okay, once you stick to this time, you again have another 30 minutes to spare at the end of the exam. So that 30 minutes you can come back and you can review the questions at that time if you are not comfortable with that, or you can attempt a extra question in case if something goes wrong in the one of the question which you did. If you have done an extra question, the examiner can mark that question and get the get and you can get your marks. So you can try or you can finish off the questions which you were stuck. Okay, which you are stuck and you couldn't complete it. You can finish off all these things. And again, as I said, section A and B, you should skim through the questions and mark off the questions which you are not going to answer at the beginning itself so that you can save your time in doing all the other questions. Okay. And also, when you are reviewing the question, you have to check the steps. You have to check whether you have completed all the steps in the answer, and also you should check the calculations because there can be calculation mistakes. Okay, how much ever you try, there can be mistakes when you put it in the calculator. Maybe you might not get the correct value, so it is always good to recheck the answers in the calculator. And also please check for the special options, whether are you calculating it in degrees or radians, and also see whether you have written all the units and have you rounded it correctly, etc. So all that extra things which they ask in the question, please review it and please verify it at the end of the exam. Okay, so whenever you read a question, you can maybe highlight, like if they're saying that, if they are talking about the units or if they are talking about rounding, you just highlight it so that you don't forget it later at a later part of the exam. Okay, now how do they mark the exam? The marking scheme, that's very, very important because there are certain tips which you implement it in your writing style, you have a greater chance of getting the marks. Okay, so you take any question, like you could take an exam question, whenever you're doing the answer, whenever you have completed the answer, you go to the marking scheme. It's already available free in the web. So go to the marking scheme and see what does the marking scheme talk about. So the marking scheme tells what are the different steps you have to do, and it'll also tell you how much if you do this much, how much mark you will get, because there's a concept of high or low partial credit. Okay, and you will get the full marks. So here they will tell you if the student has done this much of answers, it should get him high partial credit or low partial credit, etc. So it is good to understand what do they talk about. Then you will be able to judge your answers. Whenever you're writing an exam, you will be able to understand that, okay, I have to write this so that I get this much of marks. Okay, so with whenever you're practicing, not at the end, not at the like maybe 1 week before the exam, no, you have to start practicing that well in advance. And now is the right time. After the mock, you have written the exam. Now is the right time to go back and look at the questions, sit with the question, try to do the question, check it with the marking scheme. Not one question, not two questions. Write down all the question. Try doing this for all the question. Understand the marking scheme and try to work towards that. Okay, now there's I mean, I haven't written everything here. There's like two or three things which I would like to highlight here. So the first thing is there might be multiple sections on the on one question. Okay, like there might be section A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe there are four parts of a question, and you did question number one. Okay, and you got maybe the value of x is equal to 5, and then you started the second part with x is equal to 5. Okay, then you completed the question second part, and you got the answer correctly. Now it might happen that the value of x is equal to 5 is wrong. Yeah, maybe the answer is x is equal to 6. We don't know. Now, what will happen is when the examiner sees that, okay, the first question is wrong, x is equal to, the correct answer is x is equal to 6, but the student has gotten x is equal to 5. So that's wrong. But with x is equal to 5, he has done the second part and he has gotten some answer. The answer is also not correct, but he has got some answer. Okay, so if the method is correct, if the answer is correct with x is equal to 5, you are going to get full marks for the second question. Okay, so this is a very good information. What why I'm saying this, you if you are carrying it forward, if you are carrying the wrong answer also forward, if your second section or the third section is correct, you are going to get good marks for the full question as such. Okay, and then second thing is, if you if you if you're working on a question, you did the question, you got one answer, then you feel that no, this method might not be correct, maybe let me do it in another method. Okay, so don't strike off the first one. Okay, so just mark it as attempt 1, and then you mark the second one as attempt 2, and then you do the question. Okay, and then if you have another attempt, you do it as attempt 3. Okay, what I'm saying is, whatever attempts you are doing, don't scratch it off, don't tipex, never use tipex in that, don't scratch it off, but just keep these attempts intact so that the examiner can see, okay, yeah, so this student has done 3 attempts of this question, out of that the second attempt is correct, so he will give you marks for that. Okay, so don't scratch it out, that is the second thing. Okay, now how do the marking scheme work? Okay, so there's no set marking scheme initially when the living cert examination is done. So what happens is, initially when the all the teachers who are correcting the paper, they will get together and they will discuss and they will put a marking scheme ready for the correction. Now they start correcting the papers, maybe they will do it for some time, and then they will again come back and see that no, these questions were very difficult, and so many of the kids haven't gotten certain questions correct. So what they do is, they rechange the marking scheme, so that they say that okay, no, this question should carry less mark because many of the kids haven't done it. Okay, so they change the marking scheme again, and then they recorrect all the papers. So what happens is, the marking scheme as such will go through multiple iterations before it becomes the final marking scheme, which is published at the later point of time. Okay, so so as such, for as a student, you need not worry about any of this thing. You try to do as much as possible in the answer paper. Don't leave off any questions, because the teachers can give you mark, the examiner cannot, sorry, the person who's correcting, the teacher who's correcting cannot give you marks if you haven't written anything. So you should attempt all the questions, you should write something, you whatever you know from the topic, you have to write it. Who knows, it might be correct, who knows, the marking scheme will say that okay, even if the kid, if the student has attempted that question, you should give him marks. Okay, so please write as much as possible. And there's one more very, very, very basic thing which I would like to request you to do, is to write very neatly. Okay, don't scribble, because the examiner who is going to correct, whenever he is viewing your answer paper, he should be able to read it. If he's finding it difficult to read, it will really affect the marking calculations. Okay, so please write neatly, please write structured way, and please, like, if you get an answer, if you can highlight it, or if you can put a column around that, please do that, so that the examiner can see, okay, he has gotten the answer. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you write the exam, and whenever you are practicing, please start doing it now itself, because you cannot change everything during the exam, because in the exam you will be stressed, you will have to think a lot. Please don't do anything at the exam, start it now itself. Okay, now how will we prepare? How will we prepare for max in general? So for preparing marks, there's nothing, no formula, no easy shortcut, no like quick tips or something like that for marks. It is practice, practice, and practice. Okay, I would really say, from the beginning, I've been telling, like, it is like it's a practice. What will make you from H2 student to an H1 student, or an H3 student to an H2 student. Okay, so one small things which we can tell is, like, you have to learn the theorems of the proof of the constructions, which is easy and sure marks. Okay, you have to learn the theorems, you have to learn the proofs, you have to learn the constructions by heart. Okay, so that should be done well in advance, so that if you see this, you should be able to write whatever, you should be able to draw the diagram, or you should be able to write all the things which are required by the proof, and so that you will get the full mark. Maybe it is 15 marks or 20 marks, you will get the full marks at one go. And why this is easy is, you know what has to be learned, and you learn it, you go and write it, you're getting the marks. Not like the concept or the application questions where you haven't seen the question at all, right? Proved root 2 by induction, you know what it is, so just learn it. Or theorem 11, just learn it, write it, and you are getting the marks. Okay. Now for the other sections or other questions, what you have to do is you have to understand the concept first. So you can't simply go to a context and application question and just start doing it. You have to understand what it is. You have to understand what are the applications of integration. You have to understand what is the statistical method which we need to use. You have to learn how do inferential statistics work, or you have to understand what is a conditional probability. So all the concepts have to be learned first. So there are multiple videos in online which talks about the concept, and you can go and watch it because concepts is the same everywhere. So don't worry about leaving cert or anything, like just learn the concept first and then start practicing question from the textbook, and then you will be able to apply it to any of the things which they ask in the section B of your exam paper. Okay, and then you should go to the exam questions. Why is exam questions comes with a different pattern. So you will have certain questions on the textbook, but you will have a different set of questions on the exam paper. The way they ask the questions is different, so you have to get familiar with that. You have to get familiar with the wordings, you have to get familiar with the style of exam questions. So you have to go to the exam questions, start day in and day out, like work with the exam questions, try to understand what they are asking you to do, and from that you should be able to derive what I should do out of this, and then you should be able to proceed further with this. Okay. Now here, whenever you're working with exam questions, because I've noticed many kids who are going and working there, yeah, I work with exam questions, and I'm working with that all day. But what happens is they will go with the exam questions, and immediately they go to the solution. They'll see the solution. Oh, it has to be done like this. Then they do the question, and that's it. But that's not going to help you, okay? Because you are trying to remember only for that small moment that okay, this is how I should do. Don't do that. You try to find out. You take an exam questions. You read the question. You try to understand. You try to you attempt the question first with whatever knowledge you have. If you don't have knowledge, go back to the textbooks. Try to read the topic, understand the topic, then come back and attempt this question once again. If you're not able to do it, then go to the solution. And if you're going to the solution, understand why that solution applies to that exam question, and then complete that question. Again, you have to revisit this exam question maybe 1 week later or 2 week later, so that you want to check whether you are able to recognize the question, or recognize in the sense recognize what need to be done for the question. Okay, so that's very important. Now, with this, I am saying that please don't feel overwhelmed over this. You can split the topics, let's split the whole max syllabus into multiple topics, and then you can start working on it. Like if you take algebra, like there could be like 3 or 4 chapters of algebra in your textbook, and maybe the topics, maybe each and every topic is not important. Maybe only section of the things are important. So try to understand what is important and try to learn that, because now we have maybe 2 months for our final exam. So take off whatever is important and learn those topics, and then practice and review and do this. I would really recommend you practice max every day, at least for 40 minutes. At least for 40 minutes is very important, which is very much doable, because I'm not just saying for like saying sake, okay? Because I know that it is very much doable. Start with max practice every day, keep a time associated with that, and then try to do it. And you yourself can see the difference maybe in a week or two. Okay. Now with that information, what to do now? Because now I have completed my mock exam, and what should I do now? Okay, so now what you should do, immediately go and plan your study. Without a plan, you are not going to execute anything properly. So plan your study, planning in such a manner that okay, this week I'm going to complete this week I'm going to complete this, etc. So chart down how many days you have or how many weeks you have for the final exam, and then put a plan in place. Okay, this maybe this week I have to revise algebra and trigonometry, and you say that okay, these are the things which I would like to revise once again, and then you will somehow will be able to find time for that. Okay, you create a timetable, you create a time schedule, you will find time for that. There's nothing like we don't have time or something. Like you will get find time. Okay, how will you find time? You minimize your distractions. You minimize your distractions with the social media. So there will be so many things happening in Instagram or Snapchat and things like that. But for the time being, it is very important that you stay away from all of this. It's nothing. You're not going to get anything from the Instagram or Snapchat. Let me tell you. For the mock exam, I heard that many people there will paper leakage, and there's so many hype which I heard from my students during the mock exam. You're not going to get anything like that for the living cert. Okay, for the living cert, what it matters is what you have studied and what you have done. So minimize your distractions, keep your phone away, keep your things away, keep your distractions away, cut out your short social things, and then try to stick to your study schedule, stick to your routine, stick to completing the topics, etc. Now, what all should you do? You should learn the topics which you don't know, okay, which you haven't touched at all, so which you haven't studied in school, which you haven't done. Try to learn that topics, okay. Somehow you should try to learn it now because you don't have much time to learn it afterwards. And the second one is very important, you have to revise the topics which you have learned. Maybe you would have learned differentiation in fifth year, that you have to learn, revise it now, otherwise you're not going to do it. Maybe there are some certain specific conditions which you need to do, which you need to practice on, so you have to revise the topics also. Also, very, very, very important is working through an exam paper in exam conditions, because timing is very important. Many people find it difficult to manage time during the exam, so it is very important to work with the exam questions in exam paper in exam condition. So take an exam paper, maybe 2018 or 2019, put it down in the I mean, take it in an iPad or a desktop or whatever it is, and start working on the questions for end to end. Okay, and see how much time it is taking. Keep a timer, maybe 12 minutes for section A questions and 20 minutes for section B questions, or whatever timing you feel comfortable, and try working on that exam paper and see how much you are able to complete it. And take the marking scheme, correct the answer paper. It shouldn't take much time. Answering and correcting an answer paper shouldn't take more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Okay, and then see how much marks you are getting, and try to do this more often, so that will really very help. Again, let me stress you, practice, practice, and practice is what will help in marks. Please do the practice every day, and you can very well see the difference once you start practicing. Try to dedicate some time for marks, and then try to complete the topics. And I wish you all the best for your living cert examination. Thank you so much.